Hello and welcome to God in Film, the podcast where a Christian and an atheist dive into the best that cinema has to offer and see if we can find any parallels with the gospel or any other Bible stories. I'm writer and weary parent, Giles Goff.
And I'm librarian and woman who will firebomb your house if you cross me, Julia Hall.
Don't test her, guys. I've seen it done.
Don't test me.
There was another co-host here once and then he got in the way.
Shh.
And continuing season 9 of this lockdown project that got out of hand, we're looking at 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Martin McDonagh's 2017 film starring Frances McDormand, Woody Harrelson and Sam Rockwell. We'll be looking at the most dramatic conversion in the Bible, what does loving your enemy look like, and how the Bible is used to oppress women. Julia, I think I introduced you to this for the show. What did you think of it?
So this is actually my second watch because we were thinking about visiting this a little earlier.
Okay.
I loved it. Fantastic film.
Yeah.
Not one I'm sure I'll watch for fun.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I went to an unlimited screening for this and all I knew about it was the title. So I went in with no expectations, no nothing whatsoever, and it still blew me away, you know. And I rewatched it again for the show, so my times of watching it were like 9 years apart, and it's just such a compelling film. Nothing happens the way you would expect it to happen. There's that word, you know, verisimilitude. These characters feel real.
Yes.
In a way, you know, that you don't always get with every film.
They're not good guys, but they're also not bad guys either, in the sense of they're all always altruistic or they're all always bad people. Yeah. No one is perfect, which I think is what I appreciate, that they're very human people and not caricatures of tropes of people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. We're used to seeing our characters be a lot more clear-cut in a lot of ways, you know. I believe this was the film that won Frances McDormand her Oscar.
It is.
And you might not know this, Martin McDonagh is basically Mr. Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
No, I didn't know that. Okay.
You know, he's also like famously quite twitchy with his dialogue with his actors. He likes them to say it exactly as he's written it down. His argument is like, well, they're actors, they've been acting for tons of years, and I'm pretty confident they're a better actor than me. And I'm also pretty confident that I'm a better writer than them, so I'd like them to say it the way I've written it down, please. You know? So, but yeah, fair play. I believe he's a playwright originally. I think he comes from the stage. So maybe that's something you can get into in Julia's Facts.
Ba-ba. I'm going to kick off the facts with, I don't know how to describe it. So obviously the film is based on the murder of Frances McDormand's character's daughter. And she puts up the billboards as a protest, I suppose, to the lack of answers, and this is based on a genuine set of billboards that Martin McDonagh saw while he was traveling the States, which is based on the billboards were put up in Vidor, Texas, from a real case of a woman who was murdered in 1991. Wow. Her name was Lucille Catherine Page. I think with stories like this, I always like to focus on who these people were. And I tried very hard to find what I could out about Kathy Page. She had 2 children, Erin and Monica. Her birthday was on January 8th, 1957. And not long before her death, she started taking night classes, but I don't know in what. So this film was based on that case. Her father, James Fulton, put the billboards up after failure from the local officers to find her murderer, but it is widely believed that her estranged husband was responsible. Right. But it was never properly brought to justice or brought to court. They did sue him, the family did sue him for damages. Yeah. Essentially, which they won. But other than that, it still remains an unsolved case officially. Yeah. So, not the nicest of facts to start with, but I think it's always I think it's always nice to think about, or important rather, not nice, important to think about the real people behind some of these stories. So
yeah, I didn't know it was inspired by anything real, so that's...
Honestly, from pictures that I've seen of Kathy Page, she looked like a fun kind of gal. You know what I mean? With the big kind of 80s hair and the red lip. She looks like she was fun. So
yeah.
Speaking also of kind of people who are not good, not bad, kind of in the middle, I feel like Sam Rockwell, every film I've seen him in, he kind of plays an asshole. I feel bad for him. I don't know if I'm just watching the wrong films, but like Zaphod Beeblebrox.
Well, Zaphod's just this guy, you know.
I know he's in Jojo Rabbit. I've not seen that yet, but again...
Oh, you'll love him in Jojo Rabbit. I mean,
yes,
I will concede that he is playing a Nazi, so again, not great.
Not great.
But it's not like it's not like Gary Oldman in the 90s and noughties where he just consistently plays villains all the time. I mean, no, yeah, there's loads of... And also, I mean, I tend to think Zaphod Beeblebrox is kind of great. Oh, have you seen The Way Back?
No.
Right, okay.
Is that next on the list? Next season?
So, well, I don't think I can fit it in. Basically, The Way Back is the kind of film that I wish I could direct if I could. It's one of my favourite genres is like coming-of-age genres, and... it's just a perfect example of one of those things of like found family and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, you'll love him in that. He's amazing.
I'm excited.
I'm just looking at his filmography now. It's got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1990 down as one of the things he was in.
TMNT?
I
Heroes in a Half Shell?
Turtle Power. I now need to find this out. See where I need to watch this again. Thankfully, I do have this on DVD, so I can find it. No, Sam Rockwell is a great bunch of lads.
I've no doubt that he's probably a really nice person. I just feel like everything I've seen him in, he's kind of been a butthole.
Yeah,
as a character, you know what I mean?
Yeah. He gives good butthole. He doesn't.
But one thing he does like to do for these roles is find authentic people for his accent references.
Right.
So after watching an episode of Cops that was based in Missouri, his dialect coach was able to find Rockwell, the officer that was featured in that episode, whom he Skyped and then had him record all of Dixon's lines.
I love it.
And then he studied the recordings, and now we have
Brilliant.
The accent that we see in the film. That's dedication.
I don't know about you. When I'm sort of acting, when I'm kind of crafting a character, I always start with the voice. Some people it's the clothes, some people it's other stuff. But for me, it's when I know the voice of the character, then I can work out from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
An image of the set during filming can be accessed via Street View on Google Maps. I think you might have to go back a few years.
Okay.
But it happened to be captured by the Street View van as it went around, so you can see the crew there. There looks to be, I think it's the set of the police station after it's been burned out. But that's just there on Google Maps.
I love that.
If you fancy a little dig.
That's wicked.
In the sort of near, I suppose not. It's more near the end, I think, than the middle. But there's that scene with Mildred and the deer out by the billboards where she's working on the planters and things. That deer is called Becca. And she is a resident of the WNC Nature Center, which I believe is in California, after she was found abandoned and did not have the natural skills needed to survive independently in the wild. So thank you, Becca. I think you did a really good job in this film.
Don't make me sad for the deer.
No, but she's happy now.
Yeah,
she lives at a nature centre and she has friends and things.
Okay, yeah.
But, yeah.
Fantastic.
You go, Becca. We love you, Becca.
You go, Becca.
And speaking of Oscars, so Frances McDormand, is the first of only 3 women ever to win the SAG Award for Outstanding Performance by a Female Actor in a Leading Role in a Motion Picture. Say that 3 times fast. Winning it for Fargo in 1996 and for 3 Billboards in 2017. She's also been nominated for a 3rd award in 2020, but she didn't take the prize that year. So,
like, Frances McDormand wasn't really on my radar before this. I know she did Nomadland I think possibly after this. Maybe she won the Oscar for actor. I can't remember.
Nomadland was her nomination for her third SAG award.
Right, okay.
Which she didn't receive.
Yeah.
But 2 is still pretty good, considering only 3 women have done it.
She blows me away in this role. Delightfully complex character, and I just loved it.
But yeah, that's all my facts.
Fantastic. Now it's time for Finding the Faith in the Film.
Ba-ba!
So we're going to do things a little bit mixed up in a slightly different way. But basically what I wanted to talk about is one of the first things I thought of when I saw this film is a very dramatic conversion that we see here. And I want to talk about the scene where Sam Rockwell's character, Jason, comes into the station. It's after Chief Willoughby has died, and he's left him a note, and it's at the same time that Mildred is actually attacking the building. You know, I'll read out the voiceover from Willoughby. It starts with, "Jason, Willoughby here. I'm dead now. Sorry about that. There's something I wanted to say to you that I've never really said when I was alive. I think you've got the makings of being a really good cop, Jason. And you know why? Because deep down, you're a decent man. I know you don't think I think that, but I do. I do think you're too angry, though. I know it's all since your dad died and you had to go look after your mum and all, but as long as you hold on to so much hate, then I don't think you're ever going to become what I know you want to become, a detective. Because you know what you need to become a detective? And I know you're going to wince when I say this, but what you need to become a detective is love." And then Mildred throws the Molotov cocktail, and it starts to burn up.
Is there like an opera aria playing as well?
I think
that
so.
He's listening to music as well. So
yeah, and then it goes on. It says, "Because through love comes calm, and through calm comes thought, and you need thought to detect stuff sometimes, Jason. It's kind of all you need. You don't even need a gun, and you definitely don't need hate. Hate never solved nothing, but calm did, and thought did. Try it. Try it for a change. No one will think you're gay, and if they do, arrest them for homophobia. Won't they be surprised? Good luck to you, Jason. You're a decent man, and yeah, you've had a run of bad luck, but things are going to change for you. I can feel it." This film had so many surprises in it, but when one character is saying to an openly racist, homophobic, and abusive cop that what you need is love, it's so weird. It's so unexpected. And the main thing it got me thinking about was the conversion of Saul. St. Paul on the road to Damascus.
Are we finally getting into this?
We're finally getting into
We've been waiting for this.
This is what I've been promising for a while, okay? This is a stealth rehabilitation of St. Paul for you, okay?
I'm ready to be tentatively converted. I'm coming with an open mind.
Yeah. Listen, if at the end of this you feel like he's still a wrong'un and you're still not convinced, that is okay. I respect it, but I'm going to give it a really good go. All right. So I'm going to read to you just what we've got here. So we've got the blinding of Saul. This is from Acts 9 verses 1 to 19. We'll see if we read all of it. I've gone for the Message version, so it's the Julia approved version.
Thanks,
you know. All this time, Saul was breathing down the necks of the Master's disciples, out for the kill. He went to the chief priest and got arrest warrants to take to the meeting places in Damascus, so that if he found anyone there belonging to the way, whether men or women, he could arrest them and bring them to Jerusalem. He set off. When he got to the outskirts of Damascus, he was suddenly dazed by a blinding flash of light. As he fell to the ground, he heard a voice, "Saul, Saul, why are you out to get me?" He said, "Who are you, Master?" "I'm Jesus, the one you're hunting down. I want you to get up and enter the city. In the city, you'll be told what to do next." His companions stood there dumbstruck. They could hear the sound, but couldn't see anyone, while Saul, picking himself up, found himself stone blind. They had to take him by the hand and lead him to Damascus. He continued blind for 3 days. He ate nothing, drank nothing. There was a disciple in Damascus by the name of Ananias. The master spoke to him in a vision. Ananias? Yes, master, he answered. Get up and go straight over to Straight Avenue. Ask at the house of Judas for a man from Tarsus. His name is Saul. He's there praying. He's just had a dream in which he saw a man named Ananias enter the house and lay hands on him so he could see again. Ananias protested, Master, you can't be serious. Everyone's talking about this man and the terrible things he's doing. His reign of terror against your people in Jerusalem. And now he's shown up here with papers from the chief priests that give him license to do the same to us. But the master said, don't argue. Go. I have picked him as my personal representative to non-Jews and kings and Jews. And now I'm about to show him what he's in for. The hard suffering that goes with the job. So Ananias went and found the house, placed his hands on blind Saul and said, Brother Saul, the master sent me, the same Jesus you saw on your way here. He sent me so you could see him again and be filled with the Holy Spirit. No sooner were the words out of his mouth, and then something like scales fell from Saul's eyes. He could see again. He got to his feet, was baptized, and sat down with them to a hearty meal. So I might be the only person who's picked up on this parallel. I haven't researched it. I don't know if this was intentional by Martin McDonagh, but Jason's story feels like it has such strong parallels with the conversion of Saul. There's somebody who is practicably evil beforehand, somebody who sort of seems to delight in the violence that they create and the pain that they create, and then who there's even the flash of light. It's a blinding flash of light mentioned here, and then you've got the flash of light of the explosion behind him, and then
Molotovs will do that.
Molotovs will do. Molotovs will do that, and then you've got a message of love coming through, and then he is physically altered. You know, in this case, he's blind. In Jason's case, he's burned, and then you've got somebody who he's been victimizing is the person that ends up helping him, like in the hospital scene. And then there's a massive conversion. It's more subtle with the Jason character.
I feel that he's beginning on that road. I think there's only so much when you've harbored quite a lot of very intense prejudice. Is that maybe going to go away overnight?
Yeah.
But on a drive down to Idaho, maybe that's enough time to kind of get that right.
Yeah. So again, in the same way that there's some dodgy storytelling when it comes to Jesus and the fact that it just kind of completely skips out his teenage years and his 20s, I feel like we kind of miss a little bit of Saul's story because we have this and then he's this super amazing apostle. What we see with Jason, with the sort of Dixon character, it is a bit more subtle. We see him at the beginning of that journey.
He's also still kind of solving things with violence in a sense. So when he overhears at the bar the guy bragging about whatever terrible, awful shit that he's done, and yes, he needed the DNA, but also at the same time, he kind of only really knows how to fix things with violence sometimes. And in this instance, we're like, oh, that's okay, because this guy that you're attacking is more of a piece of shit than you were. So we can kind of get behind that. So again, he's not perfect, but he's getting there. He's directing things in more or less the right
direction
way.
Of travel is going the right direction. So as you say, this connection to Saul/Paul jumped out at me. I'm conscious that Paul is in your bad books, so I recruited somebody to see if I could help to rehabilitate the character of St. Paul in your eyes. So we're going to have our guest now. I'll introduce her. We are joined today by writer, trainer and facilitator Sally Hope. Sally runs the Always Hopeful Recovery Program for Christian women who have experienced or are still experiencing domestic abuse. Sally is the author of 30 Steps to Finding Yourself and No Visible Scars. Thank you, Sally, so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So one of the main characters in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri has a very dramatic change of heart. And another person who had a famously dramatic change of heart is St. Paul, or Saul in old school, whose letters are the basis for codifying Christianity. However, a lot of what Paul has to say has been used to kind of clobber women and minorities for absolute centuries. And because of this, my co-host Julia has some serious beef with St. Paul. She really has no time for him, okay? So Sally, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to see if you can help me rehabilitate St. Paul in Julia's eyes, or at least trying to work out what on earth is going on with him. Is that okay?
Well, I'll give it a go.
Fantastic. So let's start off. What are some of the clobber verses we get from Paul's epistles? The ones that women and minorities get beaten around the head with?
Well, I focus particularly on women. So there are clubber verses that a lot of gay people struggle with from Paul, but I've kind of looked particularly at the things for women because that's kind of what I do. So obviously, Ephesians 5:22. I think every woman will have heard that at some point in her life. Women, submit to your own husband as you do to the Lord.
Yeah.
And then similarly in Corinthians, he says women should remain silent in churches. Yeah. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in church.
Oof.
And then again, similar to the submit to your husbands one, in 1 Corinthians 11, he says, I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the man is the head of the woman. So it's going back to the idea of the man being in charge, the man being the head. And then there's a couple of verses in Timothy as well that are often referred to as anti-women preachers. Now, we don't actually know if Paul did write Timothy.
Yeah.
Modern scholarship suggests that he doesn't, but a lot of people think that he did. So it might be worth looking at those as well. So there's a verse in 1 Timothy 5 where he talks about young women going from door to door, from man to man, and he encourages them to get married instead. And then there's another one in 1 Timothy 2 that a lot of people talk about where he says that he doesn't allow a woman to teach a man. So those are the kind of the main ones that women tend to have a beef with, unsurprisingly.
So I guess what I'm asking is, is there any context around these verses? What do you think Paul's views on women actually were? Because although we've got those clobber verses, there's certain practices and certain things that he says that do contradict those, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I think, it's what we need to remember when we're reading Paul is that we're reading a snippet of half a conversation. So Paul's letters are letters, to and from churches. Churches will have written to him with things that they were experiencing, problems, and he's writing back. We don't know what he's writing back to. We don't have the other half of the conversation. And obviously it's 2,000 years old. So imagine if in 2,000 years' time, someone picks up a text message stream and reads only your text messages to someone. Are they really going to understand what was going on? Probably not. So we do need to remember that for a start.
My wife and I have these kind of messages along the lines of, I'm going to the shop, do you want anything? And then I'll respond with, could you get some milk and some weapons-grade plutonium, please? So I just picture it.
Well, exactly. So anybody reading that in the future might think that you were an arms manufacturer, might they? So we lose a lot of those cultural kind of jokes or colloquialisms. We can lose a lot of that.
Yeah.
Also, you need to remember that there's no grammar in Paul's writing, in Paul's letters. So they didn't use any grammar at all. So when we interpret and we translate those from the Greek to the English, we have to work out where the grammar should be.
Put it where to put in the different punctuation.
Where to put in the commas, the full stops. All those headings in your Bible, they weren't there. They've all been added in.
Yeah.
And grammar can make such a huge difference. So, for example, in Ephesians 22, where it says, wives, submit yourself to your own husband as you do to the Lord, we often forget that the verse before it, verse 21, says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And the grammar of verse 22 actually doesn't say in the original, wives, submit yourselves to your own husband. It just says, wives, to your own husband. So we know that verse 21 has to go with verse 22.
Right.
Because of the way the grammar is. It says, submit yourselves to one another as to the Lord, women to your own husbands.
Yeah.
And then it continues as you go through the passage into what men need to do.
Yeah.
So so he's actually telling wives and husbands to submit to one another.
Be subject to one another. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very deliberately only taking half of the section there, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It's very convenient for
Yep.
husbands to forget that to just take one verse, verse 22.
Yeah.
But actually, if you look at the passage as a whole, it starts with this command, be subject to one another.
Hmm.
And then it says, wives, like this. And that's two verses, 22 to 24, wives do it like this.
Hmm.
And then verses 25 to 33
Yeah.
tells the husband how to submit to his wife. So there's quite a chunk telling men how to do it.
Hmm.
So essentially, what he says is submit to your husbands, carry on doing what you're doing. Men, here's a list of instructions for how you need to submit because it
Yeah.
would have been very countercultural. It would have been scandalous, really, to just
Yeah.
tell a man to submit to his wife.
In first century Roman Empire, women already get how to submit to their husbands. They don't need any
Yeah,
further instructions on
exactly.
that
Women
point.
have already got that figured out. So he basically says, women, carry on doing what you're doing. Men, you need to think about doing something a little bit differently.
Yeah. All right, lads, listen up. This is how this is going to go down.
Yeah. So the so the Roman Empire, they had all these household codes,
Mm.
and they weren't just ideas about how people should live. This was the
Hmm.
law. It was
Yeah.
really, really important. It was considered the basis for society. You know, if we can't
Yeah.
get these household codes right. And actually, if you read Ephesians, if you go on into chapter 6, it doesn't just talk about husbands and wives, it
Hmm.
talks about slaves and masters and
Yeah.
parents and children. So the Roman household structure was that there was the man and everybody else was subject to the man. Everybody in the
Hmm.
household, the women, the children, the slaves, were subject to the patriarch, who was the
Yeah.
head of the household. And what Paul's doing in Ephesians is he's turning that on its head. He can't come out and say, just disobey this. It's nonsense
Yeah.
because Christians are already starting to be persecuted.
Hmm.
So we can't say, women, you don't have to be subject to your husbands, because that would have been fed to a lion.
Yeah.
You know, so what he said was, yeah, women carry on doing what you're doing, but also men, you need to do it too. And
Yeah.
that's the subversive bit where
Yeah.
he says, actually, instead of having this structure where there's one person in authority, we do what Jesus says and we remove authority. We don't have authority over one another.
Hmm.
We're partners. We work
Yeah.
together. And
So,
what he tells the men in that chapter is to lay aside your authority, because
mhm.
he says to be like Christ, have the mind of Christ. And later on in another part of the Bible, in Philippians, he says that what did Christ do? Christ, though he was God, he didn't consider himself like God, but instead he humbled himself and
Yeah.
made himself like a slave. And that's what he's telling husbands to do. Make yourself like a slave to your wife
Yeah.
and to your slaves
Yeah.
and to your children.
So this is where we get into complementarian and egalitarian views, isn't
Yeah.
it? You probably have a much better grasp on how to define those two things.
Yeah. So complementarians kind of believe in that structure, God, man, wife, children. The
Hmm.
man is the head. They believe that we have different gender roles,
Yeah.
and they would say that we are equal,
Yeah.
but we are different. So,
Yeah.
so a wife's submission to her husband as a leader doesn't mean that she's not equal, because she's substantially, in value, she's the same, is what they would argue.
Yeah.
But I
Separate
would
but
say it's,
equal has not gone down well over the centuries, has it? You know?
yeah, I would say it's very easy to say that when you're the one in leadership.
Yeah. It's always that it's the men have the leadership positions or the managerial positions, and it's never, but weirdly, there's never any roles that they say that men can't do. It's
No.
never,
And
it,
that's how we know it's not equal, because there isn't anything a man can't do, but there are things a woman can't do.
yeah.
So, they'll say that women are more suited to cleaning toilets and changing nappies and all those jobs that men don't want to
Hmm.
do, which is why I say it's not equality.
Yeah.
But also, men can do those jobs if they really decide they want to change a nappy or clean a toilet. A man is quite welcome to go and do it.
I
If
kind
a
of
woman
took it as
decides, yeah,
I kind of took it as a badge of honor. You know, there's
yeah,
a line in Macbeth where he says, "I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none." You know, and
yeah,
if I'm not afraid to change a really really nastily poopy nappy, as far as I'm concerned, that makes me more manly than the fellas out there who simply refuse to, like Jacob Rees-Mogg or people like that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You know?
But this whole kind of equal but different, it doesn't it reminds me of Orwell in Animal Farm, when he says
Yeah,
all animals are equal, but some
more
animals are
equal
more
than
equal than others.
Absolutely. But okay, so I have some friends who would describe themselves as complementarians. But the thing I can't get my head round is how do you, if you see yourself as higher up or closer to God in that respect, how do you view your wife as a whole entire person if that's if you see them as you having to make decisions for them? It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I think you need to have quite a lot of cognitive dissonance
Hmm.
and deal with quite a lot of that when you're complementarian. There's so many contradictory views. There's somebody in Canada called Sheila Ray Gregory.
My
Do you know
girl
of her?
Sheila Ray Gregoire, yes,
Yeah,
I've
she's
reviewed one of her
amazing.
books.
Yeah, yeah, and she say she's kind of looked into it and done research, and she says that in practice, most complementarian marriages aren't actually complementarian, they're
Hmm.
egalitarian. They
Yeah,
have this whole thing about how the husband makes the final decision, but in reality, most couples
yeah,
they don't do that. They
no,
work together in an egalitarian way, and the egalitarian marriages are more thriving. They're happier,
yeah.
and she's done the research to kind of to back up that claim.
I love the fact that we listen to the same podcast on this. Clearly. Fantastic. So, like, do you think some of these views that Paul had, do you think they were views that he genuinely held the way they're interpreted these days? Or do you think these have been deliberately misinterpreted or misused
I
by,
think I think Paul would be horrified if he
yeah,
saw the way that the church uses some of the things that he says. I mean, even that verse in 1 Corinthians where he says that the man is head of the woman, Christ is head of the man, and the man is head of the woman.
hmm,
He then says, and God is head of Christ. So is Paul arguing that there's authority in the Trinity? Because that sounds a bit heretical to
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah,
But he's not, because the word head has got more than one meaning. It's got
hmm,
more than one meaning in English, and it had more than one meaning in Greek. It's the same. So
yeah,
if we think of the word head, it can mean the head on your shoulders, your
hmm,
physical head. It can mean an authority figure, as in
mm,
how people interpret this passage.
yeah.
But it can also mean a source, like the source of a stream, like the head of a stream,
Of course, head of a
like
street.
the
Because
head of a river. Yeah, the head of a stream. It's the
I knew that
source of
head
something.
doesn't necessarily mean authority in all, like in France it doesn't, it certainly doesn't mean that.
No.
But head of a source of something, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
like the head of a stream. And if you actually look at that passage as a whole,
Hmm.
then if God is head of Christ, well, yes, God was the source of
Yeah,
Christ, but we don't believe that God is an authority. We don't believe there's authority within the Trinity, do we? That's heresy.
yeah.
We know that he means source because he goes on to say a few verses later, woman is not independent of man, or man independent of woman. For just as woman came from man, so man comes through woman.
Hmm.
So he's arguing that he's harking back to creation
Yeah,
when Eve was taken from Adam, and he's saying that man is the source of woman. In some translations, it says every man is born of a woman.
yeah.
So every man comes from a
Come from a
woman,
woman.
literally, literally. So he's arguing for an interdependence. He's
Hmm.
arguing for that mutuality. We're not independent of each other. We're mutually dependent on one another.
Yeah,
And that's the gist of all Paul's writing. He writes about partnership throughout. He refers to everyone in the church as his co-workers.
yeah.
He's keen on that.
Speaking of his co-workers, there were some key female co-workers that he had, wasn't there?
Yeah. So that's the other thing. If Paul really was saying that women can't teach in church, then he was
Hmm.
contradicting himself because because in Romans 16 he commends, I think, six Roman women
Hmm.
who were preachers and teachers and church leaders. Um, Phoebe, Prisca, Mary, Junia. Prisca, he
Hmm.
refers to several times as my co-worker.
Yeah,
It's clear they were equals. Junia is referred to in the Bible as the apostle to the apostles.
yeah.
So she wasn't just an apostle, she was the apostles' apostle. And then he refers to Phoebe as a deacon.
Hmm.
And so some people argue, well, that's not the same as a pastor or a minister. But
People have
those
fiddled with the
words,
translation with that, haven't they?
they have, because those words, pastor, that we didn't have pastors
Hmm.
in those days. Paul used three words to refer to people in leadership in the church. He
Hmm.
most often said my co-worker.
Hmm.
Sometimes he said brothers and sisters, and occasionally he said deacon. And he uses deacon to refer to Phoebe. He also uses it to refer to Timothy. And nobody argues that Timothy wasn't a minister.
Mm-hmm.
So he's using the exact same language, whether he talks about men or women, which is what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Paul treats men and women the same. So these teachings that we've got, that some people have interpreted to say women can't speak, or women can't do this, or women can't do the other. Well, if Paul really thought that, then he's contradicted himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I think it's more likely that we're misunderstanding them than that Paul contradicted himself.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think we've got to end it there because I don't think it's going to get any better than that. Sally, thank you so much. Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
Have a look at my book, No Visible Scars. No Visible Scars is a recovery book for Christian women who've experienced domestic abuse. So if you fit those categories, if you're a Christian and you're a woman and you've experienced domestic abuse, then it's written especially for you. So go and have a look at it.
What would you say to the people who are the bystanders in a church context who are seeing or have a sneaking suspicion that there's some abuse going on? What kind of advice would you give to those people?
We need to talk about abuse in churches. The reason abuse thrives is because there's so much stigma and shame around it. People will only come and ask for help if they know it's safe to do so.
Yeah.
And the only way people will know it's safe to do so is if we talk about abuse in churches. So my Always Hopeful program is a recovery program that churches can run in their churches for women who've experienced abuse. So again, get in touch, have a look at my website, find me on Facebook, Sally Hope, Always Hopeful, and have a look at my program.
That's amazing. Sally, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend with us today. I can't say how much I appreciate it, and I think it'll might make a big difference to Julia as well.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for having me.
So, Julia, that was Sally Hope. What do you think?
To be fair, I would be deathly afraid if only half of my text conversations and messages got out, because I think I would end up on about 4 government watch lists. So, okay, I'm maybe coming around. No one likes to be misquoted, I think generally a lot of the big passages in the Bible, not just for women but for other minorities as well, that are used to kind of beat people down.
Yeah.
If you go to that second page of YouTube, you always find that one person who's like, yeah, in the original Greek, it actually meant this. I think the Bible's been translated and mistranslated often to further certain people's agendas. I'm thinking specifically the King James Bible. Yeah. So it's unsurprising that sometimes things get lost in the Chinese whispers chain.
When it comes to St. Paul, there are a few possible options to consider, okay? So first of all is that not every epistle that we attribute to Paul is actually from Paul. So some of the epistles, I can't remember which ones, but some of them don't actually say, "Hi, it's me, Paul here." Some of them
Welcome
do
back
say,
to my channel.
Some of them
Sorry.
Some of them do open with grace and peace to you, and because Paul used grace, I think they think, oh, maybe this could be Paul. So it's possible that not all of them are written by him. I think it was a convention in some of those early centuries to try to imitate somebody's writing style to get your stuff out there. So some of it might not be him. Some of it's possible that maybe Paul was a man of his time and he didn't see women as quite as well as he could do. So some of it also, how can I put it? Saul is celibate and he's quite open about that. He says,
okay, this explains a lot.
So he never marries. He says, I'm being celibate because I want to focus on God more, and this helps me on that front. I'm not saying you guys have to be celibate, but this is what I'm going from. This works for me. So it's possible Saul's feelings about women could be a bit more complicated. We don't have the space to go into all that right now, but one book that I looked at that I read was Separation of Church and Hate by John Fugelsang, who has an entire chapter devoted to some of the possible issues around St. Paul there. So that's our third possibility. Our second possibility that maybe Paul was a man of his time, not as evolved as he could have been. But again, this is still the guy who can write 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter.
Love is patient, love is kind.
Yeah, well, but like this guy writes some of the most loving things in the Bible. But so how is some of the misogynistic stuff? How is that coming through? The other possible option is deliberate misreading of the Bible in order to enforce patriarchy. And, Occam's razor, that to me seems like the most reasonable thing, because this is a guy who loves women. The way he talks about sort of Phoebe and I think Lydia, the way he talks about them as his co-workers and this sort of stuff, considering the rich vein of misogyny that kind of runs through white evangelical, predominantly American Christianity these days, that's not what Paul sounds like to me, So if I had to guess, I would say that he's been deliberately misquoted and deliberately misunderstood in order to reinforce a patriarchal system.
Yeah, not that bad. That bad, does it? I'd probably say a little from column A, a little from column B. I think it's always very difficult to understand people, even as far back as 100 years, because I think there's a tendency to put our own modern sensibilities upon people in the past that maybe they wouldn't have had for themselves. Yeah. So there is always an element of these people in the past probably weren't as cool as like you thought they were, but I think enough time has passed now that it's probably okay. Yeah.
Again, it is one of those things where the more we know, the more enhanced our judgments can be, and the more we get to hear from minorities, the more we get to learn where certain words or phrases or opinions aren't okay.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily expect St. Paul to be an absolute flag-flying ally in all areas, but I think he's better than the way he's portrayed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Also, there was lots of stuff I really loved about what Sally was talking there about complementarianism and all that sort of stuff. We will probably get into that some other time in more detail but have you heard those terms before, complementarian and egalitarian?
They may dredge up a very, very long time ago from an RE lesson, possibly. But I don't, as you know, I don't think we've talked about it in depth on the podcast before.
So that is one where I do want to talk about it, but I think we need the space to get into it properly. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The last thing I wanted to talk about was, I feel like this film is an amazing example of loving your enemy.
Yes.
And I feel like this probably does more for the Christian message than a lot of preachy Christian stuff out there, And the first example I wanted to talk about was, after Mildred's been arrested for putting the drill through the dentist's
Yes. Which, to be honest, valid crash out. Because if my dentist is vaguely threatening me while about to take my teeth out, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
When you're doing dental work, that is not the time to be sharing your disagreements with somebody.
Nope.
So that seems entirely reasonable. Anyway, there's that bit where Woody Harrelson's Chief Willoughby is talking to Mildred, and it's this really delightfully confrontational sort of sparring scene where they're sort of talking about this and talking about that, and then just out of nowhere, Willoughby just coughs up blood right into Mildred's face. Mildred kind of gets splattered with it, and it's really shocking.
That messed me up on the first watch.
Yeah, because normally that, as a convention, as a visual trope, normally when that happens, it's because somebody's been shot and you've seen the blood splatter like that. So McDonough is definitely using that because we don't see the cough, but we see the effects of the cough first. But he sees there's blood splattered all over, and he goes, "I didn't mean to." And then Mildred goes, "I know." And then Willoughby goes, "It was an accident." And she goes, "I know, baby." And it's just... the baby is beautiful, because baby, normally between man and woman, we normally associate that with a sexualized content, but it was baby as in you just need to be loved and you just need to be looked after there. And she
Yeah.
starts to sort of clean his face away. And it was like for a moment there, you put aside your differences
Yeah.
and you just focus on the thing. You focus on the main thing that he's doing, you know? And then there's the bit after Jason, Sam Rockwell's Jason has been burnt and he's in hospital and he's bandaged up so much. And then you've got Caleb Landry Jones playing Red Welby, who's the sort of advertising guy
boss, yeah.
who Jason has gone. He's attacked him, he's assaulted him, and then he's thrown him out a window. And you're always looking at that bit going, why is this guy still being allowed to walk out? This isn't a you lose your job sort of thing. This is a we lock you up in prison and then we just conveniently forget the key thing.
That's assault.
Yeah, that's assault, and
straight up.
I think
GBH, to be honest.
I think throwing somebody out of a window is attempted murder, you know, and that possibly links in with how, from what I have seen and from what I understand, in small town America, it's a much more kind of lawless thing out there. You know, they seem to be able to mark their own homework, the police, in a lot of these contexts. You know,
there's the original case that I was talking about. They blame the kind of good old boy system. In the South, which sort of sat from having properly Googled it now, basically sounds like that kind of a certain kind of people, probably white, probably conservative, who look after themselves.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. But yeah, that seems to be a common factor, I think, in certain small towns in the US. Yeah,
if you've seen Rebel Ridge, that sort of reinforces this idea that the police are quite lawless and kind of do what they want. And I don't know, there seems to be so many. There's so many examples in media of police in small town America being largely incompetent or corrupt. It sort of makes you not want to go anywhere there. Yeah. But this definitely reinforces that. But the point that I was talking about is how Red Welby, Caleb Andrew Jones's character, he's sort of messed up, but he sees Jason in there, and he comes over to him to try and talk to him and make sure he's okay and all that sort of stuff, you know. And then at one point he starts to realize that it's Jason under all the bandages, and there's a genuine. First of all, Red starts to freak out. He starts to be. He has a trauma response quite realistically, you know. And then you see him reach for something, and he's juddering back to Jason. You can't see what it is, and then it's a drink. You know, it's a glass of like, I think, orange juice, and then he turns the straw towards it, and we see so many examples of bad people hurting people that in the moment, like the way my brain works, my brain has this kind of reptilian reaction of just, well, I want to hurt them back. You know, that would be fair, that would be reasonable, that would be responsible. But in that moment, the actual reality of like where Red could hurt Jason, and there could be no consequences for it. He could get away with it. And in that moment, he chooses to do something that would help him.
Yeah,
I found that kind of beautiful. It works on a sort of Christian level. It also works on like an atheist kind of humanist level, because so much of this film reminded me of that angel quote that we like so much. If nothing we do matters, all that matters is what we do. You know, that decision to just help somebody who really hurt you, I thought was beautiful.
I think for me, the example that really hits that for me is when Mildred is out at the sort of very failed dinner date with Peter Dinklage's character, and her husband Charlie, whom is like self-confessed as a wife beater, by the way. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, we see it happen, don't we?
Yeah, basically admits to being the one that has burnt billboards.
Down the things, yeah.
Which, went on that first watch, like that was I had to pause the film,
go for a walk around the block.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to you need 5 minutes to go get a drink and process what you've just watched. But it's when she goes over with the bottle of wine, and you think, she's she's Molotov'd a police station for conceivably less, and she just puts it on the table and just says, you know, treat her right, be nice to her, in terms of the very young, very naive new girlfriend that he's got, and then just leaves it.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't even think about that one, but yeah,
again,
you're right.
Not even for the billboards, she's probably well within her rights to smash that over his head.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
she doesn't. And that, I think that's, for me, that moment is what epitomizes that radical forgiveness, love thy enemy motif, I think, for me.
100%. And the last one is as Jason, Dixon, and Mildred are driving away, and Mildred says, "Hey, Dixon, yeah, I need to tell you something. It was me that burned down the police station." Dixon goes, Well, who else would it have been? You know, like the sense that he's known who's done it. She's radically altered his life and his prospects and all the rest of it, and he's forgiven her and not told her, and just it was such a beautiful. You've even cited some examples that I've forgotten about. This wonderful example after example after example of just loving your enemy and radical forgiveness, even while they're going to consider whether they're going to kill a guy or not on the flimsiest.
Honestly, I would see like a little, like not a full, like not a feature film, but like, you know, the short film, like a little film festival short film about what Mildred and Jason did on their road trip to Idaho.
Yeah. The deleted scenes, you know.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
You want the graphic novel tie-in of that, yeah. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so that wraps up our Finding the Faith in the Film. Just a quick shout out, thank you to our patrons, Sarah Cooper, Jonathan Wattis, James Pittard, Simon Seller, Phil Coleman, Lance Kane, and one Natalie Faye Miniker. There we go. Ladies and gents, if you have been, thank you for listening. Julie, have you had a good time?
I've had a good time. I might be like not hating on Paul anymore. I'm not going to say that we're besties.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. That is.
Maybe don't hate him.
We have got plenty of people in the Bible I am happy for you to absolutely rag on, you know? Start with King David in the Old Testament and just work through I'm so done with his nonsense, you know?
Nah, not today, Satan.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been, thank you for listening. Our next episode will be Pluribus, and I hope you can join us for that one. All right. In the meantime, bye.
Bye-bye. God in Film is hosted and created by Giles Scott.
That's me.
Mixing and editing by Giles. Our logo was designed by
Julie Walsh.
And our theme tune was composed by
Rick Lee.
Waffle editing by
Natalie Miniker.
Please rate and review.
Please give us 5 stars because that's a nice thing to do.